The colony world of Nu floated peacefully in the darkness of space. 2,300,000 humans called it home. They had built cities, farms, schools, and parks on this distant world. Children played in the streets. Families gathered for dinner. Life continued as it had for 30 years since the first settlers arrived. Captain Wu stood on the bridge of his warship, the UES Indomitable. He was a man of 40 years, with gray touching his temples and lines around his eyes from too many years staring at star charts. His ship patrolled the space near Nu, keeping watch over the peaceful colony below. It was boring duty, the kind that made soldiers lazy. Nothing ever happened out here. His communications officer, a young woman named Min, suddenly sat up straight at her station. Her face went pale as she pressed her headset closer to her ear. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple jump signatures. 12 ships. No, 13. They're big, sir, very big." Wu felt his stomach drop. 13 warships appearing without warning near a civilian colony could only mean one thing: nothing good. He moved quickly to her station and looked at the sensor readouts. The ships were. Everyone in human space knew about the Dominion. They were a brutal empire that had conquered dozens of worlds. The Galactic Council tolerated them because they always paid fines when caught doing something wrong. Credits bought forgiveness in Council space. Open a channel to Nu. Tell Governor Yang to activate planetary shields immediately. Down on the planet's surface, Governor Yang Li received the warning in his office. He was an older man who had helped found this colony 3 decades ago. He had watched it grow from a few hundred brave souls to a thriving world. His hands shook as he activated the emergency protocols. Sirens wailed across every city. The planetary defense shields flickered to life, a shimmering dome of energy surrounding the world. The governor opened communications with the fleet. His voice was steady despite his fear. "This is Governor Yang Li of the human colony Nu. We mean you no harm. Please state your intentions." The response came quickly. The face that appeared on the screen was reptilian, with scaled skin and yellow eyes that showed no warmth. Warprince smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Humans, you build on worlds that belonged to the Dominion centuries before your species left your little planet. This is space. You are trespassers. We are here to teach you a lesson about respecting your betters." Governor Yang felt ice in his veins. "Please, there must be some mistake. We registered this colony with the Galactic Council 30 years ago. All proper procedures were followed. If there is a territorial dispute, we can negotiate." The transmission cut off. A moment later, the fleet opened fire. Captain Wu watched in horror as 13 massive warships launched their weapons at the colony world. The planetary shields held for perhaps 5 minutes. Then they began to flicker. They concentrated their fire on the shield generators. One by one, they exploded. "All power to engines. Get us between them and the planet," Wu shouted. His crew responded instantly, but they all knew the truth. One destroyer against 13 battleships was suicide. They were going to die, but maybe they could buy time for evacuations. The Indomitable raced forward, firing everything it had. Its weapons barely scratched the shields of the nearest ship. Return fire slammed into Wu's vessel, shaking it like a toy. Alarms screamed. Fires broke out on 3 decks. On Nu, the bombardment began. Orbital weapons fired down from space, turning cities into craters. Millions of people ran for evacuation centers, but there was nowhere to hide from this kind of firepower. Governor Yang stood at his office window, watching his world burn. He thought of his wife, his children, He wondered if any of them would survive. Captain Wu managed to position his damaged ship near the evacuation transports. 6 civilian ships were loading refugees as fast as possible. He kept his destroyer between them and the fleet, taking hit after hit. His shields were gone. His armor was failing, but the transports were almost loaded. "Go, get them out of here," he screamed into the communications channel. The 6 transports engaged their faster-than-light drives and jumped to safety. 40,000 lives saved, out of 2,300,000. The let them go. War Prince was laughing as he gave the order to destroy the remaining transports that were still loading. His weapons tore them apart. Hundreds of thousands of humans died in moments, vaporized or sucked into the vacuum of space. The bombardment of Nu continued for 6 hours. When it finally stopped, nothing remained but ruins and the dead. The fleet broadcast their victory across the galaxy. They wanted everyone to know what happened to species that did not respect territorial claims. Thousands of light years away, Ambassador One Park sat in the Galactic Council chambers. She was a small woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. She had spent 20 years trying to make humanity fit into galactic civilization. She had negotiated, compromised, and swallowed her pride 1,000 times to follow council protocols. She received the news about Nu while sitting in the council chamber. Her assistant whispered in her ear. One closed her eyes. 2,300,000 dead, murdered. She thought of the faces she would never see again, the children who would never grow up, the dreams that died with them. The council chairman, a tall being with blue skin and 6 arms, spoke with what he probably thought was appropriate sadness. This is truly tragic. The Dominion's actions are regrettable. We will immediately begin negotiations for appropriate compensation. I am sure we can reach a peaceful settlement that satisfies all parties. One stood slowly. Every eye in the chamber turned to her. She walked to the center of the floor where speakers addressed the council. Her voice was quiet, but everyone heard her clearly. Prepare a message for transmission across all council channels. I will record it within the hour. The chairman nodded. Of course, Ambassador. I am sure humanity wishes to call for negotiations. No, one said. Her voice was cold, colder than space itself. Humanity doesn't negotiate with murderers. She walked out of the chamber, leaving stunned silence behind her. On Earth, in the underground command center beneath the Atlantic Ocean, Admiral Bo Young received the news. She was the supreme commander of all human military forces. She had fought in 3 wars before humanity joined the Galactic Council. She was a warrior who had spent 20 years pretending to be something softer for the sake of council membership. She looked at the faces of her senior officers. They all knew what came next. Activate Protocol Broken Arrow, she said quietly. Mobilize every ship, every soldier, every weapon. I want the Dominion erased from existence. One of her officers hesitated. Admiral, the Council will never allow. Bo Young cut him off. The Council had their chance to protect the innocent. They chose negotiations and compensation. Now they can watch what real justice looks like. Orders went out across human space. Every military vessel received encrypted instructions. Hidden shipyards that the Council never knew existed began launching warships. Weapons that violated Council treaties were armed and prepared. Humanity had been pretending to be civilized for 50 years. The pretending was over. Ambassador One Park stood before the Galactic Council 24 hours after the massacre. Every seat in the massive chamber was filled. Representatives from hundreds of species watched her with curious eyes. News of Nu had spread across the galaxy, but most species assumed humanity would follow standard procedures. File complaints, demand investigations, eventually accept whatever compensation they offered. One had not slept. Her eyes were red, but her back was straight. She wore black, the human color of mourning. Behind her, holographic displays showed images from Nu ruined cities, burned forests, mass graves being dug by the few survivors. She began speaking, without waiting for permission from the chairman. For 50 years, humanity has followed your protocols. When the consortium seized our mining stations, we negotiated. When the collective enslaved our survey teams, we filed complaints and waited for council justice. When the raiders attacked our merchant vessels, we accepted compensation. We bent our nature to fit your vision of civilization. Her voice remained calm, almost conversational. That made it more frightening. You taught us that peaceful resolution was the highest virtue, that violence was primitive, that true civilization meant talking, compromising, finding middle ground. We believed you. We changed ourselves to become the species you wanted us to be. The holographic displays changed. Now they showed children's bodies being pulled from rubble, families who died holding each other, a school that had been hit directly by orbital bombardment. 2,300,000 humans died yesterday. They murdered them while laughing over open communications channels. They broadcast their crime to the entire galaxy as a warning. And what was the Council's response? Negotiations, appropriate compensation, peaceful settlement. One's voice finally showed emotion, rage, cold and controlled. We have learned something important. Your civilization has no mechanism for justice, only process, only paperwork, only credits changing hands while murderers go free. You have built a galaxy where violence is rewarded as long as you can pay the fine afterward. The council chairman tried to interrupt. One ignored him and continued speaking, her voice rising. Humanity has a different protocol. We have followed your ways for 50 years, but we are not you. We were apex predators. We hunted mammoth and saber-toothed cats with primitive weapons. We survived ice ages and plagues and endless wars with each other. We are killers who learned to be civilized, but we never forgot how to be killers. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages. The ambassador, a tall being with purple skin, stood and pointed at one. You cannot threaten violence in these chambers. This is exactly why your species needed to be civilized. You prove you are still primitive. One smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. You're right, we are primitive, and now you're going to see what that means. She touched a control on her wrist. The holographic displays changed to show a star map. Red markers appeared on 17 systems, all within Dominion space. Humanity does not negotiate with murderers. We eradicate them. You have 48 hours to evacuate any non-civilians from Dominion space. After that, we are not responsible for collateral damage. This is not a negotiation. This is a warning. The council chairman stood, his 6 arms raised for attention. Ambassador Park, I must insist that humanity stand down immediately. Any military action without council authorization will result in severe sanctions, possible expulsion from the council, and potential military response against Earth itself. One looked at him with pity. You can try, but ask yourself this question. If you couldn't protect 2 million humans from what makes you think you can protect them from us? She walked out of the chamber. Behind her, chaos reigned. Captain Wu limped onto the bridge of his new command, a stealth reconnaissance ship called the Silent Blade. His previous vessel, the Indomitable, had barely survived the battle at Nu. It was in a repair dock now, and Wu had volunteered for what everyone called a suicide mission. He was taking 12 stealth ships deep into space. Their mission was simple: map every military installation, every shipyard, every weapons platform, every command center. Intelligence Officer Da Sung had given him a list of targets. They needed to know where to hit where it hurt. The Silent Blade and her sister ships jumped into territory using routes that civilian traffic never traveled. They stayed dark, running on minimum power, sliding between the gaps in sensor coverage. Wu had fought in the Outer Rim Wars before humanity joined the Council. He knew how to run silent and deep. Over the next 30 hours, his ships mapped everything. Then her intelligence team on Earth processed the data as fast as it came in. They identified command structures, supply lines, fleet positions, ammunition depots. Everything humanity needed to tear the Dominion apart. War Prince sat in his palace and laughed at the human threats. He watched Ambassador Park's speech 3 times, finding it hilarious. The Navy was 10 times larger than humanity's known fleet. The humans had maybe 300 warships. They had 3,000. He sent a response that was broadcast across the galaxy. It showed him sitting on his throne, surrounded by weapons taken from species his people had conquered. Humans, you amuse me. You threaten war because we punish trespassers. This is the arrogance of a young species that does not understand its place. Our fleets are vast. Our warriors are legendary. Your 300 ships will die as easily as your colonists did. Come to our space. Come and die. We will add your weapons to our collection and your worlds to our empire. The broadcast ended with warriors laughing. On Earth, Admiral Bo-young watched the broadcast with her senior staff. Around the table sat the commanders of every branch of the United Earth Space Force. They did not laugh. They did not rage. They simply got to work. "Status report," Bo-young said quietly. Commander Sung-oh, captain of the Dreadnought-class warship Retribution, spoke first. "Dreadnought fleet is ready. All weapons systems operational. We have authorization to use the Nova Cannon system." Lieutenant Minhan, now promoted and commanding a fighter wing, reported next. "Fighter wings are loaded and ready. We have 40,000 pilots ready to launch." Da Sung appeared on a screen, reporting from intelligence. "We have complete target packages for all 17 primary objectives. Civilian population centers have been marked as off-limits. All targets are military installations. Captain Wu's reconnaissance data was perfect." Admiral Bo-young nodded slowly. She looked at each face around the table. "Understand what we're about to do. The Council will condemn us. Some of them might even try to stop us. We will become the villains in many species' eyes. They will say we're proving that humanity is too violent, too primitive for civilization." She paused, her jaw tight. "They're right. We are violent. But sometimes violence is the only language monsters understand. They have been murdering minor species for 2 centuries, and the Council has done nothing but negotiate. Today, that ends. For every species they have victimized. For every child who died while the galaxy looked away and did nothing." She stood, and every officer stood with her. "Give the order. All fleets jump in 47 hours. And tell every captain the same thing: no mercy, no prisoners, no negotiations." The orders went out across human space. 300 warships that the Council knew about began moving toward space. But behind the moons of Jupiter, hidden in deep space facilities, and concealed in asteroid fields, another 500 ships activated their engines. Humanity had lied to the Council about the size of their fleet. They had hidden half their military capability, just in case they ever needed it. Now they needed it. The countdown began. The galaxy watched. Some species cheered humanity's resolve. Others trembled at what was coming. The Galactic Council sent urgent messages demanding humanity stand down. Admiral Bo-young ignored them all. She had only one message for the galaxy, and she broadcast it on every frequency. "To any species that has ever been victimized by the Dominion, in 47 hours humanity will deliver justice. To everyone else, stay out of our way." The 47-hour countdown ticked away, every second bringing the galaxy closer to something it had not seen in 1,000 years: total war. The countdown reached 0. Across 17 systems, the fabric of space tore open. 800 human warships emerged from faster-than-light travel simultaneously. The coordination was perfect, the timing exact to within microseconds. It was a level of military precision that shocked every species watching through long-range sensors. Admiral Bo-young stood on the bridge of her flagship, the UES Vengeance. It was a massive vessel, twice the size of anything the Council had seen before. Its weapons systems alone violated 4 different Council treaties. She did not care. "All ships hold position. All frequencies broadcast the recording." Across every system, on every communications channel, the same audio file began playing. It was 6 hours long. It was the last transmission from new screams, children crying for their parents, people begging for mercy, the sound of cities being vaporized, and over it all, the laughter of warriors enjoying the massacre. The recording played for 10 minutes, 10 minutes of horror. Then Admiral Bo Young's voice cut through. "This is Admiral Bo Young of the United Earth Space Force. What you just heard was the sound of 2,300,000 humans dying. The Dominion did this. They bragged about it. They broadcast it as a warning. Today, humanity delivers a warning of our own. For no mercy, no prisoners, no negotiations." The human fleet attacked. They had been expecting a fight. What they got was slaughter. Captain Wu's stealth ships had already infiltrated every system. Before they could respond, their communication satellites exploded. Their sensor networks went dark. Their coordination fell apart instantly. The fleet outnumbered the humans, but without communications, they fought as individual ships instead of a unified force. Commander Sung O's dreadnought, the Retribution, punched through the center of the defensive line in the system. Its Nova cannon was a weapon humanity had developed in secret, something the Council had specifically forbidden. It fired a beam of concentrated energy that could cut a battleship in half. Sung used it again and again, carving through ships like they were made of paper. Lieutenant Minhan led her fighter wing against the shipyards above Prime. 2,000 fighters swarmed the massive orbital construction facilities. The defensive guns shot down hundreds of human pilots, but the rest kept coming. Min watched her friends die around her and kept flying. She targeted the main reactor of the shipyard and fired every weapon she had. The shipyard exploded, taking 70 ships still under construction with it. But the Dominion was not weak. Their ships fought back hard. In the AL system, 3 human destroyers were destroyed by battleships. In the system, a human cruiser was rammed by a vessel whose captain chose death over surrender. Hundreds of human soldiers died in the first hour. The battle raged for 12 hours straight. The Galactic Council watched through long-range observation posts and civilian ships at the edge of the combat zones. What they saw terrified them. Human warfare was nothing like Council species fought. Council battles were about honor, about minimizing casualties, about offering surrender. Humans fought like they wanted to erase their enemy from existence. When ships tried to surrender, humans ignored them and kept firing. When stations broadcast white flag protocols, human forces destroyed them anyway. There were no prisoners, no mercy, just death. War Prince sat in his command center watching his empire burn. His communications with his fleets kept cutting out. Reports came in fragments. The humans were everywhere. They moved faster than should be possible. They used weapons that violated every civilized rule of war. They fought with a fury that made no sense. He tried to rally his forces, but command and control was breaking down. The humans had systematically destroyed every relay station, every communications hub. His grand fleet was reduced to individual ships fighting alone. In desperation, he opened a channel to the human fleet. Admiral Bo Young's face appeared on his screen. She looked tired, but her eyes were ice cold. "I offer surrender," said, hatting himself for the words. "The Dominion will pay any reparations. We will cede territory. We will accept whatever punishment the Council." "We don't negotiate with murderers," Bo Young said and cut the transmission. The human fleet began orbital bombardment of military worlds. But unlike what they had done to Nu, the humans were surgically precise. Every target was a military installation. Every shot was carefully calculated. Civilian areas were marked as off-limits. The humans were not here to commit genocide. They were here to destroy the military machine completely. But the galaxy did not see precision. They saw human warships bombarding planets from orbit. They saw cities burning. They saw a level of violence that shocked species who had lived in peace for centuries. The Galactic Council emergency session was chaos. The chairman tried to maintain order but failed. The ambassador was screaming about human barbarism. The delegate demanded immediate intervention. A dozen other species shouted in a dozen languages. Ambassador 1 sat quietly in her seat, watching the chaos. Her assistant leaned close and whispered, "2 council fleets are moving to intervene. They're heading to space to force a ceasefire." 1 nodded. She had expected this. She touched her communicator and spoke directly to Admiral Bo Young across the light years. "Council fleets are coming, 2 of them, orders." Bo Young's response was immediate. "Anyone who interferes will be treated as accomplices to genocide. Broadcast that message across all council channels." 1 stood and walked to the center of the council chamber. She did not wait for permission to speak. Her voice cut through the noise. "The fleets are moving to protect the. This is their choice, but understand what it means. You are choosing to defend a species that murdered 2 million humans while laughing. You are choosing to stop justice because you are uncomfortable watching it happen. You are proving that the council will protect murderers as long as they are strong enough." The ambassador stepped forward, her purple skin flushed dark with anger. "We are stopping a massacre. Your people have lost all control. You are becoming the monsters you claim to fight." 1 met her eyes without flinching. "Perhaps, but at least we fight monsters. What do? You talk, you negotiate, you write strongly worded letters, and millions die while you debate the proper procedure for stopping killers." She turned to address the entire chamber. "Humanity has sent a message to your fleets. Any species that interferes will be considered an accomplice to the genocide at Nu. This is your only warning. Stand aside or share this fate." The chamber fell silent. In all the thousands of years of council history, no species had ever directly threatened council fleets. It was unthinkable. It was barbaric. It was happening. 3 council species immediately recalled their fleets. They wanted no part of a war with humanity, but continued forward. War Matriarch commanded the fleet. She was a veteran of 100 campaigns and had never lost a battle. She sent a response to the human fleet. "We do not fear you. Stand down or face the consequences." Admiral Bo Young received the message and smiled without humor. She had fought the once before in a border skirmish 20 years ago. She knew their tactics, and they were famous throughout the galaxy for their defensive formations. "Change of plans," she told her fleet commanders. "New target coordinates. We're about to teach the council what happens when you defend murderers." The human fleet began moving toward an intercept course with the council forces. The galaxy held its breath. War Prince watched from his and dared to hope. Perhaps the council would save his people after all. Captain Wu sat in his stealth ship, watching the long-range sensors. The council fleets were massive, powerful, well-trained, but he had seen what human determination could do. He had watched 40,000 colonists escape Nu because he refused to give up even when his ship was dying around him. The humans were outnumbered. The humans did not care. The 2 fleets moved toward each other through the darkness of space, carrying with them the fate of galactic civilization itself. The standoff lasted 4 hours. War Matriarch commanded 90 warships, arranged in their famous defensive formation. 3 sides of a cube, overlapping shields, perfect firing solutions. It was a formation that had never been broken in 3 centuries of military history. Beside her fleet, 60 vessels held position, their weapons charged and ready. Facing them, Admiral Bo Young had 300 human ships. On paper, it was a fair fight, but neither side wanted to find out what a fair fight looked like. On Earth, Chancellor Yejun sat in the Presidential Command Center with his entire cabinet. The room was silent except for the hum of equipment. Every screen showed different angles of the standoff. The Chancellor was a politician, not a soldier. He had spent his career building bridges between species. Now he watched those bridges burning. "Can we win if they attack?" he asked quietly. His military advisor, a general with 30 years of experience, answered honestly. Unknown. We might destroy both fleets, but we would take massive casualties. And then the entire Galactic Council would turn against us. We would be at war with the galaxy itself. Chancellor Yejun nodded slowly. Everything he had worked for was falling apart, but he thought about the images from Nu, the children, the families, the laughter of the as they murdered. Send a message to Admiral Bo Young. She has full authority to make whatever decision she needs. Earth stands behind her. In orbit above Noose ruins, Captain Bin commanded Earth's home defense fleet. She watched the standoff on her screens while her ship surrounded humanities. If the Council decided to retaliate against Earth itself, she would be the last line of defense. Behind her fleet, hidden in orbital facilities, humanity's final weapons waited. Weapons so terrible that even human military planners were frightened of them. She hoped they would never need to be used. She was not confident in that hope. In the Galactic Council chamber, Ambassador One addressed the assembled species one final time. She was exhausted. She had not eaten in 2 days. Her voice was hoarse from speaking, but she stood tall and her words were clear. We are at a point of no return, not just for humanity but for all of us. The question you must answer is simple. What kind of galaxy do you want to live in? She activated a holographic display. It showed a timeline going back 200 years, incident after incident of aggression, minor species attacked, colonies destroyed, civilians enslaved. After each incident, the Council's response was shown: negotiations, compensation, fines, the paid and moved on. They have killed billions over 2 centuries. 47 species have been victimized. Every time the Council followed protocol. Every time they learned they could murder with impunity as long as they paid afterward. You did not create them, but you enabled them. You built a system where violence has no real consequences. A delegate from a small species called the stood up. His people had been attacked by the 30 years ago. They had filed complaints with the Council. Nothing had changed. Ambassador Park speaks truth. My people lost millions to raids. The Council gave us words, sympathy, procedure. The humans give us something else: justice. Other delegates began standing. Species that had been victimized. Species that were too small to matter in Council politics. Species that had learned to be quiet and hoped the strong ones would ignore them. One by one, they stood in support of humanity. The chairman watched his council fracturing before his eyes. He had led this body for 40 years. He believed in diplomacy, in peaceful resolution, in the power of negotiation. He still believed, but he was watching that belief die in real time. At the standoff point, War Matriarch received new intelligence from her sensors. Something was wrong. The human fleet was not moving into attack position. They were just waiting, patient, calm. That was not how desperate species fought. That was how predators waited for prey to make a mistake. She opened a private channel to Admiral Bo Young, woman to woman, warrior to warrior. Why are you doing this? You could have negotiated. The Council would have given you justice eventually. Why choose violence? Bo Young was silent for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft but every word was heavy. How many species have said those same words? How many victims were told to wait for justice eventually? How many children died while the Council debated proper procedure? You ask why we choose violence. I say we did not choose it. They chose it when they murdered our people. We are simply delivering the consequences. Knew she should feel angry. She should feel righteous. Instead, she felt tired. How many times had she watched the Council fail to protect the weak? How many times had she advised patience while knowing nothing would really change? What happens after this? Do you plan to conquer occupy their worlds, become the new empire? No, we will destroy their military capability completely. We will ensure they can never threaten anyone again. Then we will leave. The civilians can rebuild whatever kind of society they want, as long as it does not include warships and weapons. We are not conquerors. We are exterminators. And we only exterminate one thing: the ability to commit genocide with impunity. Something changed in that moment, made a decision that would define her legacy. If I withdraw my fleet, will you promise that civilians will be protected? You have my word. Every human ship has strict rules of engagement, military targets only. We are not here to commit atrocities. We are here to stop them. Took a deep breath. She turned to her fleet commanders and gave the order she knew would end her career. All ships stand down, withdraw to safe distance. Do not engage human forces. The fleet commander, seeing the withdrawal, made his own calculation. His fleet alone against 300 human warships was suicide. He ordered his ships to withdraw as well. The Council fleets pulled back. The path to space was clear. But before Admiral Bo-young could give the order to advance, something unexpected happened. Jump signatures appeared on sensors. 47 ships emerged from faster-than-light travel. They were not military vessels. They were civilian ships, converted freighters, old patrol boats, vessels that looked like they were held together with hope and determination. They positioned themselves alongside the human fleet. Captain Wu received their transmission and could not believe what he was hearing. These were ships from 23 different species. All of them were species that had been victimized by They had come to stand with humanity. The lead ship was commanded by Captain Orr. His world had lost 3 million people to a raid. The Council had given his species sympathy and procedure. He sent a simple message to the human fleet. We stand with humanity, for justice, for those who cannot speak for themselves anymore. Ambassador 1 watched the sensor data in the Council chamber and felt something she had not felt in days. Hope, not for her species, for all of them. She turned to the assembled Council and spoke one last time. You see, this is what happens when someone finally stands up to evil. Others find their courage. The galaxy is changing. You can change with it or be left behind. But humanity will not stop. Not now. Not ever. They will face justice. And anyone who commits genocide in the future will know the same fate awaits them. Admiral Bo-young looked at the 47 civilian ships flying beside her warships. They were not soldiers. They were farmers and merchants and teachers who had armed themselves and come anyway. She felt a weight on her shoulders. The weight of being the one species willing to fight. The weight of others' hopes. All ships advance, she ordered. Target, it ends today. The combined fleet jumped forward. War Prince, watching from his palace, finally understood that no one was coming to save him. The Council had abandoned him. His fleet was shattered. The humans were coming and they would not stop. He sat on his throne and waited for judgment. They surrendered without a fight. War Prince stood in his palace as human soldiers entered. They were led by a young officer named Corporal Wu Nam, who looked barely old enough to serve. Wu had lost his entire family at Nu, his parents, his sister, his nephew who was only 3 years old. He looked at the War Prince and felt nothing but emptiness. You are under arrest for genocide, Wu said, his voice flat. You will be tried for your crimes. Who had commanded armies and conquered worlds, allowed himself to be placed in restraints without protest. He had lost. The humans had won. Now came the consequences. The Galactic Council demanded the prisoners be turned over for proper trial. Ambassador 1's response was broadcast across the galaxy. Humanity will conduct the trials. The crime was against humans. The evidence is human testimony. The judgment will be human judgment. You are welcome to observe, but we will never again submit our right to justice to a system that values process over outcomes. The trials were held in orbit above Nu. The location was deliberate. Every judge, every prosecutor, every witness could look down at the ruins of the world and remember what this trial was about. Captain Wu, He described watching cities burn while he fought a hopeless battle against overwhelming odds. Lieutenant Min. She described flying through debris fields that contained human bodies. Governor Yang through recorded message, found in the ruins of his office. His last words before he died. The survivors, 40,000 people who escaped, who watched their world die, who lost everything. Their testimony took 3 days. The galaxy watched every minute. War Prince's defense was simple. Under law, he had done nothing wrong. New was built on disputed territory. The humans were trespassers. Tradition allowed for harsh punishment of trespassers. He was following his culture's rules. The judges were human officers who had served in every conflict humanity had fought. They listened to everything. Then they delivered their verdict. Guilty of genocide, of crimes against humanity, of murder on a scale so vast it could not be forgiven. The sentence was death. The Galactic Council erupted. Capital punishment had been abolished among civilized species for thousands of years. The very concept was barbaric. Dozens of species sent protests. Some threatened to expel humanity from the Council permanently. Ambassador 1 addressed the Council one final time. She was leaving after this. She had spent 20 years trying to make peace between humanity and the galaxy. She was done. You abolished capital punishment because you lived in a galaxy where you never had to confront true evil, where the worst crimes were met with fines and negotiations. You built a system that made murder a bureaucratic problem instead of a moral abomination. We do not have that luxury. We cannot pretend that some crimes can be solved with compensation and apologies. She paused, looking at each delegate. War Prince ordered the death of 2,300,000 humans. He laughed while it happened. He bragged about it afterward. And you wanted us to negotiate with him, to accept credits in exchange for our dead. Tell me, what is the correct price for a child's life? What amount of money balances the scales when an entire world is murdered? No one answered. The execution was carried out. War Prince faced a firing squad of survivors from New. They did not miss. But the real change came next. The 47 species that had stood with humanity proposed a new organization. They called it the Mutual Defense Coalition. The principles were simple. Attack one member, face all members. No negotiations with genocidal aggressors. Justice enforced through strength. 63 species joined immediately. Most were small powers, minor species that the Council had historically ignored. But a few larger powers joined as well. The led by War Matriarch shocked the galaxy by joining. They brought their entire fleet. The Galactic Council found itself split. The old guard, led by the who had not joined the coalition, clung to traditional diplomatic methods. The new coalition members demanded reform. The debate raged for months. Admiral Bo-young returned to Earth as a hero. Parades were held in her honor. The president gave her medals. Children were named after her, but she did not feel like a hero. She felt like a soldier who had done what was necessary, nothing more. She received a private message from War Matriarch. They had never spoken after the standoff. Now, with everything settled, asked the question that haunted her. What happens when your righteous anger becomes something darker, when you become the threat you fought against? What happens when humanity decides that preemptive strikes are justified, when you use your power not to defend but to conquer? Bo-young thought about this for a long time before responding. Then I pray someone has the courage to stop us the way we stopped the. We are not perfect. We are not moral paragons. We are humans, capable of both great good and terrible evil. But for now, in this moment, we chose to stand against genocide when no one else would. If we fall in the future, I hope someone remembers that and finds the strength to stand against us. She paused, then added, but until that day comes, murderers will know one truth: humanity doesn't negotiate. On New, reconstruction began. The 40,000 survivors returned. Volunteers came from across human space. Slowly, painfully, life began again on the dead world. A memorial park was built where the capital city once stood. 2,300,000 names were carved in black stone. It would take years to complete. Every name would be remembered. Elder Song stood in the unfinished memorial park, addressing a group of students. He was a historian and philosopher, one of the few who had tried to understand what the new incident meant for humanity's future. "They ask us if we were willing to become monsters to fight monsters," he said quietly. "But that is the wrong question. We were always capable of being monsters. Every species is, if pushed far enough. The real question is whether we can control our monsters, whether we can unleash violence when necessary and then put it away when the threat is gone." He gestured to the names being carved around them. "We did not do this for revenge, though revenge was part of it. We did not do this for glory, though some will remember it that way. We did this because someone had to. Because a galaxy that allows genocide to go unpunished is a galaxy not worth living in. The Galactic Council built a civilization on the principle that all life was valuable, but they forgot that some things are worth dying for, worth killing for." One student, a young woman named Sora, asked the question on everyone's mind. Did we do the right thing? Looked at the ruins around them, at the names being carved, at the ships overhead carrying supplies for reconstruction. "I don't know, history will judge us. Maybe they will say we were heroes who stood against evil. Maybe they will say we were barbarians who brought violence back to a peaceful galaxy. Maybe both are true. All I know is this: 2 million people died here. They will never see justice through courts and negotiations, but their murderers are dead or imprisoned. Their world will live again. And across the galaxy, species that commit genocide now know there are consequences. Is that enough? I cannot say. But it is more than the council ever gave." The students left, each carrying the weight of what their species had done. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had changed it. For better or worse, the age of endless negotiation was over. In the Galactic Council chambers, now half empty as species chose sides between the old council and the new coalition, a memorial was placed. It was a simple stone with words in dozens of languages. Ambassador One had insisted on it before she left political life. "In memory of all victims of genocide across the galaxy, may we find the courage to protect them before counting their dead." 20 years later, the galaxy had stabilized into a new normal. The Galactic Council still existed but was smaller. The Mutual Defense Coalition had grown to include over 100 species. There were tensions, disagreements, occasional conflicts, but genocide had decreased by 90%. Species that once preyed on the weak now thought twice. Because they knew, the humans were watching, and humans didn't negotiate. Nu was fully rebuilt by then. 3 million people called it home. The memorial park remained at its center, a reminder of what was lost and why it mattered. Every year, on the anniversary of the massacre, humanity held a day of remembrance. Not celebration, not pride, just memory. Captain Wu, now Admiral Wu, stood in the memorial park on the 50th anniversary. He was old now, gray and tired. He had fought in 3 more wars since Nu. The galaxy was still not perfect, but it was better. He placed flowers at the memorial, as he did every year, and he made a promise, as he did every year. "We remember, we will always remember, and we will never let it happen again." Above the planet, human warships kept watch. They would always keep watch, because humanity had learned a terrible truth. Peace was not the absence of violence. Peace was the presence of those willing to fight for it. The galaxy had learned to live with its new guardians, some with gratitude, some with fear, most with both. And in the darkness between stars, potential aggressors looked at Nu's ruins and its rebirth, and they made a calculation. Was conquest worth facing humanity's wrath? Most decided it was not. The message had been delivered. The warning was clear. Justice existed, enforced not by words but by will. Humanity didn't negotiate with murderers. The galaxy would never forget.